Hello, good evening, welcome. Good morning if it's morning when you see this. Um, this reading is just going to be 2 picks, but when I was dealing out the cards and shuffling, 4 cards came out. And I considered making it a pick 4, but I'm going to go with no. And I put my ring light on, and it made it pretty near impossible to see what these cards are, because they're holographic. But that's okay, right? So you're still going to pick 1 or pick 2. Those are the choices. I'm going to talk for a little bit in the intro. So, what was I going to talk about? I was going to talk about journaling dreams and revisiting an old healing modality. So I've been having, sort of like the most gentle journey, really, compared to what it had been for years for me. And what's nice about this part of my journey is that I don't have to rub up against and grind against like sandpaper within relationships in my life. Like, it used to be that I would come together with certain people and they would poke me in a certain wound, and then I would use that poking or the mirror of that in order to do my shadow work. And I did that for years, and I came to understand that, my human desires and wants for a certain outcome in my relationships wasn't necessarily what those relationships were for. So it was a real misunderstanding on my part when I started to do things like look at the astrology of me and another person. And because it was a strong astrology, I would think, this is my soulmate. This is someone I'm supposed to be in relationship with. And it was true. I was supposed to be in relationship with those people who I saw I had a bond with in the astrology. But what I didn't understand was the longevity of it or not. I didn't understand that I was mixing that kind of soul level understanding of what the chart is with my human want to be happily ever after. Which, for me, there was a lot for me to do before I could be happily ever after, because each person that I was in relationship with taught me different things and helped me scrape off different layers of myself that were not really effective for having a happy, healthy relationship, which is what I desire and what I deserve and what I am now worthy of. And I would say that, I got what I deserved all along the way, even though plenty of the time I was feeling like a victim to the men, especially that I was in relationship with. All along the way, I played like a victim because I didn't know how to fully take responsibility for all the pain I was feeling over what it was that I was balancing out in karma. And it had to be done a little bit at a time. And as I did a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, I finally got to this more whole perspective where I can see a bigger picture view, and I can understand that, as much as I blamed the other parties, I was equally, at fault, if we want to call it that, or equally immature, I was equally matched, for sure. You know what I mean? Like I can't just blame somebody else for treating me bad if I actually let them. To me now it seems like I'm laughing because it seems so silly, but I'm not trying to dismiss you and your pain if you do find yourself in that situation. I'm just trying to offer the understanding that I've now gained through a lot more experience and a lot more time doing my healing work and collecting these karmic loops and ending them. And what it's revealed to me is that, it wasn't ever that they were necessarily abusive to me. And a lot of that I realized was like just a narrative that I bought into. Like if you were to look at the narrative that is circulating in the populace about narcissists. I was really clueless about the whole narrative about narcissists until I came upon it, and it seemed like the answer to everything I was going through. And so at the time it served me because I used it to dissect all the wounds in me that were a match to that kind of narrative. But when I did that, when I healed all the things in me that were a match to that narrative, what I end up seeing is, oh, narcissists aren't like some, like yes, they can do some things that aren't very pleasant, but can't we all? And playing the victim to them is just as much of an abuse as them lying to, manipulate and gaslight. It's like when you step back and you kind of see the whole dynamic play out, you understand that it's like it's a chess game and both parties are playing, right? That means that both parties are not taking full responsibility for themselves, and it's a codependent relationship. And so codependency happens within power plays. And if you have power plays going on in relationship, then that's the same ingredients that it takes to make a war. So if one person were to be pure, be innocent, well, we're all really innocent, but like were to be mature, and they wouldn't participate in that. You know what I mean? Like it takes two to let that happen. Because once one decides to mature past it, they won't participate in it anymore. So I'm noticing as I put my hands on this table that this new setup that I have is very, very wobbly. So I'm just going to peek at the table below the tablecloth and see what's going on here. Is this something I can straighten out? I think it's just the nature of this kind of table that I have. It's a big round table, and it's just like on one center thing with feet at the bottom. So, I don't know, I'll look into using my other table maybe going forward, but for now, this is what it is. So, I apologize for the wiggles. And also that the camera has kind of gone and bent. So, let's just stay like that, shall we? Thank you. Okay. So, one thing that's kind of brought me to speaking about this is because I've been having to look at older relationships again, but the way that it's happening for me is through my dream state. So that's very interesting because, like I said, I'm not having to rub up against someone else or be in a relationship with someone else for them to poke anything out of me. It's like the relationship that I already had, now it's like 3 years in the past. It's been over for three plus years. That is still serving to teach me to this point and to let me still scrape off layers. And that's something that I wouldn't have done if it hadn't come up in my dreams, because I really did put it behind me and thought, I was really forced to and had to. It was nothing that I wanted to do, because all along the way, I really was convinced that this was someone that I love and wanted to be with. And then I had to come to terms with the fact that you can love someone and they can just not love you back. And it's like, what are you going to do but move on? And that was a very painful, unfolding and process for me to go through and heal from. It's called unrequited love. And, there are a lot of aspects that go into healing it. At least for me, there have been a lot of layers, a lot of different things to consider. And they all kind of build up the wholeness that I needed to gain from it. It's like one thing was like, okay, to realize that I am the love that I give. It's like, yes, that's true. Like the whole time that I was loving this person, even if they didn't love me back, I was still experiencing myself as love, as a loving being. And I got to be that love, but my love at that time was mixed in with a lot of anger when it wasn't returned. That wasn't love. Then I experienced myself as the lack of love, which I projected onto him. And I said, it's his fault that I don't feel loved. Well, it's like, no, actually, he's the object that I'm using to project on and say that he's not giving me love. But what I'm really hurting from is the fact that I'm not being love in this moment. And the reason why I couldn't maintain being love in the moment through all the moments of being in a relationship with him was because I was still wounded from my own childhood and misunderstandings that I had concluded about what love is, what love isn't, what it means when somebody is paying attention or when they're not. And these were misunderstandings because in actuality, when I look back from this more healed version, I would say that, one version, in a very immature way, you could say, oh, my parents neglected me and emotionally because they didn't check in with my emotions or consider them at all. It's well, that's because that was what was done to them. And in actuality, the truth of it is that my mom loved me the way that she knew how to love. And that was her version of love. That was the best she had. She was not in any way consciously, purposely trying to abuse me or neglect me or abandon me. It's just that I caught into the whole narrative about emotional neglect. And because my symptoms fit with it, it became a story of abuse for me in my interpretations of my childhood. And that still had to be broken down. And that was what was highlighted when I was in a relationship with somebody who did not want to reciprocate any of the affections that I was willing to give, and that I was fully focused on him. And how beautiful that as a soul, he agreed to do that for me. I'm just so appreciative that him, because as a human, he did me wrong and betrayed me, went behind my back and cheated on me and things like that. But on a soul level, he's very important to me. He's someone who agreed to do that for me, so that I would learn and to take my power back and love myself and rectify the misunderstandings that I had about what love is and what love isn't. Because without the experience in a human form in the 3D with him, I wouldn't have been able to look at it. And it was just the perfect kind of recipe because in a lot of ways, he helped me survive. But at the same time, there was this damaging stuff, and it's that kind of mimicked what my version of what I felt love was, but also wasn't. So it was just the perfect recipe for the soup I needed to nurse me back into health, using all the tools that I had, gained about what to do with the pains I had and the misunderstandings that I had about, life and myself, my worth, and what love is and all that. So when I've been having these dreams, when it first started happening, I was kind of ugh, why am I dreaming about him? After all these years, it had been a while, since I had to think about him. And, sometimes he would come up in my thoughts, but I would never entertain it. And so over the years, anytime he did, I would just kind of, love and nurture myself and accept any feelings that came up. So it was kind of I was all drained out of any excess feelings that I still had from any hurts that were lingering from the relationship. I had healed my inner wounding from childhood that pertained to whatever that relationship was poking in me. And I had healed all my feelings that were hurt about heartbreak and loss and sadness and grief. So what the dreams actually brought up for me was some of the beliefs that I still had. I still had parts of me that hadn't been processed through fully about the sadness that he just that it was someone that I let see me, I was just very open, honest, and let myself be fully seen, and that I was not chosen, and that I was rejected, and I was deemed not important to him, even despite that. Like, there were things like that that I had to process through. And so those kind of pains were able to come up just through having the dreams. And I was like interested, because like I was like, well, I wouldn't have been able to see that pain without the whole dream playing it out for me and poking it out of me, you know what I mean? Like, because that feeling wasn't going to come up. How, you know, in what circumstance would I have let that feeling surface? I don't know. But my dream allowed it to surface, and then I was able to actually utilize an older healing method that I hadn't been using for quite some years, and it's called faster EFT. If you've heard of EFT, it's a tapping, and where you use the meridians in your body, which, excuse me, have been discovered and mapped out by the Chinese many, many years ago. And you may have heard of what's called acupuncture, where they put needles into those meridians to release energy. But this method of tapping also serves the same purpose, to move energy out of those meridians or through the body by activating those meridians. And the faster EFT method is done by a certain man, Robert something. He's on YouTube, and he teaches this method of certain points, and how to, like, while that feeling is active, to just tap these points and let it go. And as you're letting it go, you know, you're not able to bring it back. Like, it's really leaving, you know what I mean? And so you can actually tap on the same thing until you have absolutely none of it left. And so I was using that method on any of these things that came up, and that's been like a couple nights of dreams worth of this old relationship. And it was mostly like, it was just sadness and grief over it not panning out. But also I realized that, you know, at the time that I was in that relationship, I was first learning about spirituality and things like that. And I understood that we would live out our beliefs. So I knew that I could program beliefs into me by repetition, because I wanted to live out beliefs, and I wanted our relationship to work. And I wanted it to work really, really bad, because I wasn't like a person who had like, I didn't think there would be anyone else for me. When I met him, it was like, oh, he's the one. Like, I really love him, and I want to be with him. And it was pretty shocking to me, actually, that he didn't want the same. It was really rough, because I didn't understand why. I didn't get why I could love somebody so much with all of my being and heart, and that they wouldn't feel the same. I guess there's some tears coming up now as I say that, so I'm going to tap on them as well. But that was really sad for me. And so I lost my train of thought, because I'm tapping on this feeling as it comes up. That's what you do. You do it in real time. So anyways, as I tap on these things in real time, I let them go. Whew. Oh yeah, so I remembered through this period of time that one of the things I did back then to help my relationship succeed was I programmed myself with the belief that we would work out. And so one of the things that these dreams are reminding me of is the need to change that belief, because I don't have any feelings associated with it now of pain that it's not working out, but the belief is still there. And so there's part of me that still wonders why he didn't even try, right? Like, why wouldn't he have realized, especially when it whatever he did to me, I'm sure was happening to him afterwards. And, you know, why wouldn't a person just be like, gosh, I really treated that person like shit. I need to, like, let them know that was shitty of me. Like, isn't that what a decent person does? And that's like, well, actually, his mother once told me that, you know, she had never ever in her 50 plus years of marriage with his father ever received an apology from the father. So when you think about it that way, it's like, oh, this person probably just is not able to move their pride aside to apologize for things. And I'm not someone who's going to hold myself a victim to needing an apology. It just seems weird, right? Like, to me, it seemed weird that there was no ever, like, real closure. But in bringing it up again, I was able to, like, remember, like, oh, it's because I have this belief. programmed into me, because I actually made a recording that I was loyal to him, that I'd love him forever, that we would that I would be devoted to him, you know. And I listened to it for weeks at a time, all day long and all night long. And I did that in an effort to solidify our relationship, because I knew that if my beliefs were that I could live that out. And I guess it was more of an experiment, because I knew that it would be true for anything that, you know, didn't have a free will, but like he was a person with free will. And, you know, now what I know about energy is that probably made him feel really suffocated and scared, and he probably wanted to run away harder when I programmed my energy that way. So, you know, perhaps maybe it backfired, but it also backfired in the way that there was a part of me in my subconscious that held on to it this long, right? Like 3 years later, and I'm like finally tapping out that belief and letting it go, and with the understanding that this was a relationship that was there to hurt, you know, to show me the hurts that I was carrying and the misunderstandings I had. But another thing about that is, like, if I were to look at his chart and my chart and all that, like, the charts are what made me think that we should be together. And so I would say now what I know about charts is, yes, the charts did show me that we were meant to be together. That was part of our soul plan. But what I know about charts now is that charts are meant to be overcome. So if we wanted to be together, then we both would have needed to overcome our charts individually so that we could be together. And that's not something like he's doing. Like, he actually was playing out his chart continuously, because in his chart it showed that he chose his friends over me and had other priorities like work rather than me. And that was like really impossible to think that when there's this opportunity for bettering and growing, that he wouldn't choose it. Because like I was like, no questions asked, I'm choosing my high road. Like, there's no one's gonna like take me off the path of my own growth and learning. Like, I can see it in the chart, I know what I'm supposed to do, and I'm gonna do it. But like, he had no belief in me. Like, he didn't believe what I believed. So like, he just thought, oh, here's a weird dreamy girl who thinks that the world is like made of unicorns and pink clouds, so I can probably like play with her for a while on the side while I do stuff that's more important to me. And yeah. Well, I was thinking like, oh, this is my one and only, and we have to work through all this karmic stuff so that we can be happily ever after. And it was like totally ridiculous now looking back that I would subject myself to that and subject him to that. And looking back, it's like, okay, well then the only conclusion to come to is that he didn't choose to transcend it. And maybe he will someday, maybe he has since we parted ways, but like, it's not my business, because he didn't choose to do it with me. And now we've grown apart. And that's just what it is, right? Like, maybe somewhere in the future, on the road ahead, he will have done what he needed to do on his chart, and we would be able to come together as friends or something like that. But like, that part of me isn't like a hopeful, wishful, dreamy part. That's the part of me that goes, well, we're on a soul journey. That is one of my soulmates. I really honor him, hope that he does, or I'm holding space for him to make it through what his soul came to do. So that's where I'm at. And all because I started paying attention to my dreams, I got kind of all this like freedom. And because it really did feel like freedom each time I tapped out one of these old, like, I feel like it's the equivalent of like old clunky junk that I was like carrying in my trunk. You know, in energy, it's like an old, you know, a little subconscious part of me that was like harboring this secret belief that like I was still meant to like love him forever, and that it was a sad, tragic thing that he didn't choose me. It's like, you know what? It's just life. It's just like, has nothing to do with my worth, and I needed to separate those things. Someone not choosing me doesn't have to do with my worth. Yes, it's sad. Yes, I understand why I cried about it and why it made me feel really bad, but ultimately that was like, let that go, because that's not like the truth of who I am. There's a whole bunch of other things that are true too, which is like, now I know myself as very, very loving, very loyal, very monogamous, very very much a lot to give, you know? And I know that because, like, if I could just be that devoted in that relationship and be that resilient and that sustaining for so long, I mean, this was a, you know, years long relationship, then I know myself as like a good catch, and I know I have a lot of worth, and it doesn't, and it's like I needed that relationship to scrape the parts of me, to help me see the parts of me that I needed to integrate, so that I am that good catch, even on my bad days. You know what I mean? So very interesting, and maybe this reading will kind of tie into that, because usually when I talk for a while in the intro, it will tie into the readings or whatever. So I really want to say, though, that if you listen to this, like, maybe one of the reflections I want to offer is to take a look at your dreams, what's coming out in your dream state, and is there a reason for it that you can kind of look at further for yourself. Okay, so pick one and pick two. Use your own intuition to decide, or listen to the whole reading through. Let's start with pick one. Now I'm going to have to like tilt these up to look at what they are. We've got the Knight of Wands and the Five of Pentacles. Interesting. Fast moving and willing to work. It's like whatever information you've got coming in lately is very beneficial for you. Let's see what it's pertaining to. Assertiveness. Yeah, okay. So are you feeling like you're ready to assert yourself on something? And is it work? Is it like something where you need to invest a little bit of money to get some payoff, or something where you have invested already previously and it's time to really like drive it home, so to speak? Make sure you don't give up at the final hour or whatever. Collect the fruits of your labor. Be assertive to collect the fruits of your labor. This could be in a new career. Maybe you have a new opportunity, or you're going to create one for yourself. I want to get this other deck of cards. I found one card in another spot, and it was because my granddaughter was here and she picked up one card. And I asked her to put it back, and she did right away, but she put it in the wrong spot, and I just uncovered it when I moved a deck from my bin, and it made me smile. She's so sweet, my grandbaby. Well, both of my granddaughters are. Okay, we've got laughter. So it's like you're willing to follow your passion and have fun doing this new thing. Like, whatever you're doing, it's like you're creating a career for yourself that has to do with passion, following your passion. Not, not what society expects you to do, or what your parents wanted you to do, or it's like what you're here for, what you're driven to, what you're inspired to. Making your dreams come true. Okay, and now we have romantic partner. Interesting. Maybe you're looking to connect on a deeper level with somebody in the workplace. Maybe a new career that you're pursuing is putting you in a position to meet somebody new. Hold on, I want to get my bunny deck. This is the Chubby Bunny deck. I really like it. That ring light is just not helpful, is it? tell us who this person is generally. Someone who's put a lot of work in but doesn't seem to be getting the payoff that you want, and who is single or has failed relationship, and who has an idea, like an inspired idea. Someone who's very smart, willing to learn new things, and also has like a need, a compulsion to share some information. And maybe that's what into a new career, or maybe it's with a romantic partner, because romantic partner we put over here with assertive. A new career was kind of like your dreams coming true. So this is interesting because one of the things I spoke about in the intro was completing a mission and working together. And I don't know if I definitely used those words, but like I kind of said like that with an ex of mine, that I had been clearing up old karmic kind of lingering energies through having had dreams about them. It was like one of the things I mentioned was this need to clear up the things from the chart, from the astrology chart, in order to live, this other way. And I feel like this kind of the stage you're at maybe is that you've done that. You've done a lot of work to like clear all the stuff. You've put in a lot of hard work, and now it's time to like go forward into the fruits of your labor. And that this takes this assertiveness that you've kind of put yourself in the position of, because I don't think you could settle for less at this point, right? Like you know what you want. You're in touch with your heart. It's like one track mind. You will get there. There's nothing going to stop you. It's laughable that anyone that anything could stop you. It's like that. I mean, anything else we should know about? Tell us about the new career. I said, tell us about this new career, and it said no, but this is not the side of the card that I was supposed to read anyway, but that was interesting and funny. Made me laugh. Go the distance. So this new career, maybe it has to do with travel, because we had that Knight of Wands. He's on the horse. He's traveling along. This Eight of Wands means forward movement. Affected health. Maybe you're going to be doing something that helps with health, like a healing, something healing. Maybe you doing this, following your passion, is going to help you heal as well. That's possible. Some sort of healing modality, I think, is what you're going to be focused on. Work it out, open heart. Okay. So your work is going to be something about opening hearts, which automatically helps heal. Grass is green, go. We got go the distance, and we got grass is green, go. And we got the Knight of Wands and the Eight of Wands. Get it done. Holy moly. There's nothing, right? That's what I felt. There's nothing that can possibly stop you. You know, it's not going to tell us. When it said no, it meant like, no. Like, I'm not going to tell you, because maybe it's even something that you need to keep to yourself while you work on it. Interesting. Tell us about the romantic partner. Tell us about this romantic partner, please. Exit the situation. Okay. Any repeating cycles that you're in in a relationship that you have, or lingering from an old situation, right? Because in my intro, I talked about I had lingering stuff come up through a dream state, and then I had to like let go of that. So in order to assert yourself in this manner, maybe the assertion is to exit any of those repeating cycles. So you might want to look into the faster EFT. Yeah, stop, break the cycle. If you see yourself going into an old cycle, stop. You've already done that. You already know what the outcome is. You've already decided and know. And it could be like a habit or an addiction or a belief that keeps you in it. And that's what you need to be present with. Accept that it exists so that you can be present with any feelings that you're trying to avoid by being in it. This seems like it's very important. That's what I kind of want to say. Anything else about... You have to break it. It has to be your free will that breaks the loop, because you'll just stay doing the same old thing if you don't stop it. It's up to you. Your assertiveness, right? It's like your choice. And if you don't choose to stop it, it will continue on. Okay. You have a solid union on offer and something to celebrate once you break free from this. Okay? After you break free from any... So notice anything repeating. Let's ask if we can see what is the repeating thing. Let's see what the repeating thing is that is in the shadow. I just realized this is out of the view, so I'm going to put it like this. Control issues, possessions, feeling possessive. Like maybe if you invested a lot of energy into a situation, you may feel possessive. Or you might feel like to leave a situation, you'd have to leave some of your possessions behind. You might still be sour about having lost some of your possessions in a breakup that's old or new. It's something like that. Is something, let's see, anything else about what is keeping this? What's the cycle? What's the shadow in the cycle? You may think that this is something that you're supposed to be bonded with, because this came in reverse, soul bond and energetic ties. But these cords can actually be cut. So, So one of the things I realized, which I was in reference to the relationship that I talked about in the beginning of the intro of this reading, but I didn't mention this part. One of the things I realized was like I stayed in it a lot longer because I thought that we were meant to be together, because it was in the astrology chart, because I didn't yet understand that some relationships could just be for cleaning up karma, learning about my wounds, cleaning up misunderstandings. Now, sometimes two people will work together and both clean up their misunderstandings, and then you can grow together. And sometimes two people grow apart. And sometimes one person doesn't want to do the soul cleansing karmic work to release themselves from the pattern. So you are stuck in a pattern, and it is up to you to choose. You probably have a soul connection out there waiting for you. That's why this is being brought to your attention, because if you're not in a celebration mode, in a solid union, that's what you're missing out on by staying in a karmic bond where you think that you're meant to be. You think that you're tied there, but the only thing tying you there is your control issues and your unwillingness to surrender. Whenever we see control or possessiveness or possessions, the antidote to that is always going to be surrender. Surrender, 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 let go, let go, let go. And these are difficult things to do when we have pride, when we have like all these expectations, or when we have fear of being wrong, when our ego is invested in being right. Then we can really F up our soul plan and keep ourselves in miserable situations longer than we need to be, when we've already known that it doesn't work, right? And it's like you can either stay in it and deem yourself a bad person and you have to be somehow punished, so you have to stay in this loop, or you can put on rose-colored glasses, pretend it's not really happening as bad as you think, or you can learn the lesson and decide to surrender your control issues and step out of the situation, be present with any feelings that arise throughout that process, whether it's scared of being alone, fear of being wrong, fear of your reputation being ruined, fear of someone else being disappointed with you, fear of losing your possessions, fear of having to go to court, fear of having to pay child support, whatever it may be that's keeping you there. Surrender, okay, and then deal with all the feelings, meaning be present with and accept that it's the truth, and be present with any feelings that you have about what surrender means and what surrender brings up. On the other side of that, you're free. Okay? And the world looks a lot different when you're not looking at it through the lens of these energetic karmic patterns that are already been played out. You've already done this enough times that you know what happens if you stay in it. So it's up to you. And there's a lot more to your life than this, right? This is going to be like the cherry on top, because you already have so much going for you. You've put in a lot of work. You're not afraid to do hard work. Wouldn't it be nice to actually fulfill these dreams of yours in both career and relationship? And the relationship issue is definitely going to tie into your money issue. Like if this new career is going to bring you abundance, it's going to be hard to translate that if you're keeping yourself in a lack situation in your relationship. So both kind of have to upgrade together, you see? Just like if you were in a relationship with someone else, both would have to upgrade together to stay balanced. Okay? And, yeah, I just want to remind you that this is up to you. You can stay doing the same old thing that you've always done. If you feel like you're not ready to step out and do what your soul wants you to do, then just take this as information to reflect on. If you are ready to do it, wonderful. This celebration, let's celebrate how far you've come. Let's celebrate what you've learned. And let's celebrate every step of the way for you. And either way, none of it's wrong. It is up to you, and this is ultimately meant to be helpful. So just take what is helpful for you. Okay, pick one. All right. Thank you for spending your time with me here. I appreciate you being here. And I'm going to end your reading there. I'm going to move on to pick number 2. All right. Pick number 2. Let's see what you got here. Let's see. This is the 6 of Pentacles. And the 6 of Swords. Maybe you've just been going through the motions. Feeling like you don't know if things are going to fall apart at any moment, but you kind of like the stability of the comfort zones you do have and that you can count on, and just kind of like willing to stay in those cycles where you can. Let's see who is pick 2 in this situation. Using my Chubby Bunny deck. Hierophant. Yes, okay. So you're someone who really does like tradition. And maybe it's kind of like this like old school character where, and when I say character, I'm not trying to like diminish your personality or worth or anything like that. I just mean like valuing of how things used to be, right? Like tradition, and it's like if it's not broke, why fix it? If it is broken, fix it. Really liking to keep things as they are. I just got the image of like someone who likes to keep the same style of car all the time. You know, like you like this brand and this style and this is what you buy. It's interesting because when I say that, I think of like 3 people that I know that are like that I've known in my life. I used to have an ex-boyfriend, not the one that I talked about in the intro. A much less serious one, although, you know, it was serious for me when I was in it, but like he loved Volkswagen. It was like his thing. Very interesting. Okay. 7 of Swords. You use your mind and your intellect a lot, and maybe you kind of like strategist, not afraid to take action. You will, I think you'll take control of a situation when you need to. Queen of Pentacles in reverse. Your finances might not be all that stable though with this situation that you're in. Yeah, and you know that, like, it's like you like the security of knowing, but you also know not everything is clear. You also know that you don't know what you don't know. You want it to not change, but you know that it could change at any moment. Like, yeah. It's like somehow you live with this idea that things are how they are, and that's how they are. But at the same time, you might let yourself, even, not all of you, but some of you might let yourself live in denial of the fact that things are changing. And those that do let themselves live in denial of that, it's like change hits you. It's like you're prepared for it anyway, so whatever. It's like you'll only make a decision when you're forced to. Otherwise, you're just going to go with what is, how it is. You'll carry burdens, heavy burdens. A lot of burdens, and financial burdens included. It might feel like there's a lot of pressure on you, right? It could be from family members, from expectations, or like keeping up with what your peers are doing, or like schoolmate friends. Like there might be some sort of competitive nature. Might be really hard for you to make decisions. Maybe there have been times where you made decisions and the outcome was not something you liked. So now you like wait and you don't make a decision. And that's kind of like making a decision, but instead it's like, instead of having to blame yourself for making a dumb decision, you just don't make the decision. You just keep things as they are as much as you can. Okay, if that sounds like you, if that sounds like the situation you're in, I mean, but on the other hand, it does show that you will take action when you need to. So maybe you just always wait till things are falling apart, or things are very burdensome, or things are breaking apart, or like shifted to respond. Okay. That sounds like you, or the situation you've been in or find yourself in, or someone you know, if you're cross-watching. Then let's see what else this is. Let's see why we're talking about this. Maybe you've been having this urge to travel, and maybe that's not something you've been wanting to do. Remember we talked about someone who always has the same kind of car. Maybe there's something having to do with that, where travel isn't possible because of a car situation, or maybe you've paid off your car. Maybe you're trying to pay off your car, but with the financial trouble, that had to be priority for a while, and then maybe the other priorities will come to surface now. I think you talk yourself up into the place where you can function. This let go came in reverse, but I kind of want to say that you will let go of things when they're not like fitting in your ease. If it doesn't fit into your ease or what you feel is your comfort zone, then you'll let it go. And I don't think you care how good it is, or how for you it was meant to be, or how beneficial it might have been. If it's not like on your terms, you chose it, and you think it fits into your comfort zone and way of operating, then no, you won't even, I don't think you'll let yourself go off course. And you won't let yourself step into the unknown. You're very like, you may not realize that a lot of the things you're doing because you have coping mechanisms set up to keep you from being in the unknown. You're keeping your world very small. You have an opportunity to travel. No, we got stand your ground, so that's something you're very good at, I think. Even when there's a decision to be made, I think you'd just rather stand your ground. Yeah, self-reliant, for sure. I want to say you're the king of self-reliance, but we don't even have a king here, so they're not giving you credit for a king status, because what you're doing is sort of like a, now listen, I'm going to say something and it might hurt a little, but it's an immature way of coping with those fears that all humans have to encounter and face. It's like, yes, it's good to be self-reliant, and it's good to check in with our own selves to know what we want. So it's like kind of like it's like you're most of the way there to king status, but there's this like thing that you're going to have to deal with. And it's being more flexible with what you're willing to allow into your life, and allowing yourself to make choices that are sometimes difficult to make. But like, so what would be the thing that would make it so that you wouldn't want to make a decision? Have you been shamed for making a bad choice? Have you had experience where you made a choice and it was a bad one? Have you realized that if you made a choice on a certain thing, that a lot of other people would be affected? Like, figure out what the thing is. But daily chores, sorry, I'm just peeking outside. I have a neighbor with like a friend that comes over often that like revs their engine and like does this like big like, oh, a manly truck, rah rah rah, and I don't know why, but I hate it. I need to like tap that out right now. I mean, I know he's just a child. I've met the dude, and sometimes he thinks he can joyride on my property. Alright, I'm just tapping it out. Hold on. I think it's just like this feeling of like, so maybe you can relate to this, right? We'll make this part of this reading. This feeling is like, my feeling of it is like, he's puffing up his chest and acting like, oh, I'm the big mad man with the big loud roar truck. But he's literally just a child, and like that's a childish thing to do, to like roar up your truck and like disturb all like that. That neighbor has kids and stuff and dogs, and like the dogs don't seem bothered. They don't start knocking, barking or anything. But it's like the same thing as like another neighbor that like shoots off his gun randomly, like at 10:30 at night or something. It's like what are you guys trying to prove, and to who? So like, I don't know if you're a person who has some of those kind of traits where you're just kind of like, maybe it's I mean, I don't know. Okay. I don't know how that ties into this reading, so you can take that. I mean, maybe you've had a similar situation, and maybe we were tapping it out together. I'm just going to let it go now. I've already tapped out, that particular immature person from my energy. So I don't know why it came up again now during this reading. So interesting. Okay. All right. So I feel like what you're doing, the reasons you're doing it, are because you have a lot of responsibilities on you every day. So you're keeping up with those, and that's wonderful. But also, you might be getting through by like feeding yourself an idea of what it will be like in the future when you change something. Or when you get that $1 million idea, and then things will kind of like take off for you, or then you'll let certain patterns go or whatever like that. Tell us about the $1 million idea, please. I'm going to ask about the $1 million idea and see what the relevance is. Financial restraint. Wear a mask. Okay. So the $1 million idea is because you had that bit of struggle. And it would also like help you pay off this debt. You could do the travel that you're meant to do. I wear a mask is like, people don't know this. You're not telling people that you're going to have $1 million idea and, play ball, equal give and receive. Maybe you also dream of having somebody that is like as self-reliant as you, so you can both give to each other and receive from each other in a fair, balanced way. And maybe that's something that you've not been able to experience, right? And maybe one of the things that's causing you to operate this way is like an overcompensation for immature circumstances when you were younger. It's like you had to grow up, you had to take control. So even though I say it was like an immature pattern, it's because you're compensating for like maybe immaturity around you. Interesting. So it's just like the way that you've decided to cope. You've learned all you can from that way. These people that are incompetent around you, that you're having to compensate for, that you can't be an equal give and receive with, those are karmic. relationships. Those were meant to teach you. Those were meant to be uncomfortable. You were meant to feel burdened by it so that you would notice that it's out of balance, because you know about balance. You know what that feels like. You like that. You want that. The fact that you want that tells you that what you want matters. It's in the equation here. So if you are surrounded by people, it's look at the subconscious reason. What is the hidden benefit of keeping them in your life? Could be one thing to look at. Yeah, there's a new perspective. And you've been trying hard to not let yourself kind of drop the ball on all of this stuff, but it's meant to drop. Something's going to drop. And it's okay, It doesn't make you incompetent, just so you know. It means that you're upgrading. It means that you're maturing. It means that you're able to let go of something that's no longer working, and that's a mature thing to do. Interesting. This came out, immature girl. Maybe some of the people that you're surrounded with are also immature. And that energy, now we all have masculine and feminine energy within us, and this is divine feminine. If you have wounded feminine or feminine energy within you, whether you're a boy or a girl or however you identify, if you have wounded feminine energy within you, then you also will attract people that also have wounded feminine energy. And that's because you're probably going to be projecting that onto them. You can see it in them. But so that you can have that mirrored back to you, so that you can notice the pattern of that immaturity. Because sometimes it's easier to notice it outside of ourselves instead of in ourselves. It's a subconscious pattern. It's in a shadow, so you can't see it. But if you have people around you and they're immature, especially the females, those are things to take note of, because that is your map to healing. That's your look for the thing you see and notice in them that rubs you wrong. Remember when I talked about how that neighbor had a friend who's kind of acting immature, revving up their engine and stuff, and I felt annoyed by that. When you look around you and you see anyone that annoys you or anyone that you notice is acting immature, those people are there as a favor to you to show you what that immaturity looks like, so that you can look for it in yourself. Now, it's either there in yourself as the same way as it shows up in them, or it's in you as a judgment, or it's in you as something you would never allow for yourself, something that was taken away from you, right? Maybe in the way you were brought up, something happened in childhood and you were told never, ever act like that. And maybe it was telling jokes and being free and fun, and you disallowed that for yourself. So now you have been stuck in a loop of coping in a way that never allows you to tell jokes on the job or whatever it is. That's just a random example, but do you see what I mean? Those are the most common ways that someone can be mirroring back to us. So, look for any of those ways that this mirror might be shown to you in the people around you by whoever rubs you, whoever can get you into a uncomfortable feeling, that they're showing you that uncomfortable feeling that needs your love and your acceptance. So that's what I did when I was tapping, right? I said, okay, I have this feeling and I love myself through it and I'm present with it and it can be with me, and I'm going to tap it right in. And I'm going to tap in my acceptance for that uncomfortable feeling, and now it's okay, yeah, people are allowed to be immature. People are absolutely allowed to be immature. And now that I can see a certain type of immaturity, I'm not going to do that, right? Because I didn't enjoy it and I don't see the point of it. So You probably won't see me spinning my tires or revving my engine when I pull into like my neighbor, my friend's house at night. Probably won't happen because I just don't see the point of it, because there's nothing in my ego that says, rah, rah, I need to show that I got a cool truck. You know what I mean? But I also, if I've taken care of that annoyance in me, the next time I hear him revving his truck, I'll just be like, oh, that little boy is just like wants to puff up his chest a little and show he's here. And I'll just send him a happy thought for his ability to puff up a little bit with his truck. It's like, it's not really harming me, It's like, okay, that's a nice way for you to express your needs, if that's what works for you. Like, that's the perspective change that happens when I integrate any annoyance that I have. Do you see what I mean? And so do you see how also that's like a more mature way of looking at somebody else who's in immaturity, instead of me going, oh, that's annoying. No, I matured myself by accepting the way I feel and being present with how I feel. And I use tapping to speed up the process of that integration for me, so that I can move through that and now next time, be in a higher perspective, a more free perspective of a willingness to accept him as he is, because I've accepted me as I am. You see, I've accepted that I had annoyance about that. I've accepted it. And I've also decided, well, I don't really want to feel annoyed every time that guy comes, so it's fine. You know what I mean? But I couldn't do that until I accepted that I had annoyance. It's like you accept it and then you move through it. And that's where we can get stuck when we have a lot of coping mechanisms that are keeping us afloat, standing our ground, because we don't realize that what we're doing is holding ourselves in a holding pattern that doesn't allow us to grow. And that growth will also correlate to any financial restraint that you've been encountering, and also will correlate to any like $1 million ideas or projects where you'll be able to move out of like the holding pattern towards like actually taking steps in the direction of making those dreams come true for yourself, because you certainly have what it takes, right? Yeah. So balanced feminine energy is actually what you need. So maturing your feminine energy allows the feminine to be in a balanced state of receiving. And receiving is the energy you need to be in, whether you're a male or a female, to get $1 million idea, right? You need to be able to receive the idea. And if you are not in feminine energy, you're not going to receive $1 million idea. You have to be in the divine feminine energy to receive that idea. Okay? Okay. So you can do it. You can absolutely do it. And I know some of this might have been difficult to hear, but like we're all just growing. So like immaturity is a relative term. It's like immature to what? Well, it depends on how old you are. It depends on expectations. It depends on, no, actually it just means that there's a step above that that's more mature than you are now. It doesn't mean you're behind in developmentally or that you've done anything wrong. Absolutely none of that comes into this. Okay, immaturity just means there is a step above. Like for me, judging the neighbor's level or behavior, there was a more mature way that I could handle that. So I matured myself through the process of realizing, accepting, and being present with the discomfort that I was feeling. Okay, pick 2. Very exciting. Good for you. Thank you for being here. Remember, this is just information to reflect on, so it's meant to be helpful. Just take what's helpful for you, and perhaps I will see you in a future reading. Bye now.